What's the biggest 180 you've seen a person's life take? I knew a guy in college who was a straight-A student on track to become a doctor, but he was miserable and burned out. One day, he dropped out, moved to a small town, and started a woodworking business. He's now incredibly happy making custom furniture and says it's the best decision he ever made. My high school gym teacher went from being a health nut and bodybuilder to a professional pastry chef. One day he just decided he was tired of bench presses and protein shakes, went to culinary school, and now he runs one of the best bakeries in town. The dude gained like 50 pounds, but swears he's never been happier. Affluent family, star college track athlete, Olympic hopeful, knee injury, surgery went well, full recovery predicted, prescription for Oxy for the pain, addiction, expanding drug problem, begins using heroin, homeless, 4 felony convictions for crimes to feed the addiction equals life without parole in prison. He was a law-abiding, productive member of society with a great career, home and family. Then one day he decided to go to the casino for fun. 2 years later he was a convicted felon with no home, less family, and no career. 180s are not always good things. My brother spent his late teens and mid-20s being a lying, thieving, directionless bum who flunked out of college despite being extremely bright. Then one day he just decided enough was enough, a switch flipped in his brain or something, and he went back to school for electrical engineering, graduated one of the top of his class, and has a stable, well-paying career. And his relationship with the family has never been better. I couldn't be more proud of him. I can only speak for myself. I was 13 years old, overweight, sick all the time, prone to violent outbursts mimicking my biological father, and actively researching the most painless and foolproof methods for ending my life. I started running. At first, I could only make it a couple of 100 feet. My ankles felt like they'd burst into flames, but I leaned into the pain because it felt like something other than despair. I kept running. Within a year, I was fit, swore off violence, and found several compelling reasons to live. And I got hopped up on bananas and Diet Coke and ran 13 miles one afternoon like it was nothing. I've fallen back into the pit several times in my life, but I always claw my way out toward the light. Running has always been the fulcrum. I'd be dead without it. A friend of mine, good kid if a bit rambunctious and a bit of a troublemaker, definitely on the track to a solid living as he could fix anything, and was always keeping himself busy tinkering with things. Not book smart, but definitely not someone who would struggle to survive if left to his own devices. He was in an accident that left him with a severe TBI among other things. Long story short, he ended up hooked on drugs, and was in and out of rehabs and constantly getting into trouble. Good news though, as he pulled another 180 out of his ass and is now clean for years, has a family, and though still dumber than a box of rocks, is living the good life. I'm proud of that moron through and through. It's more common to see the mighty fall than it is to see someone climb from the bottom to the top. I commend those people. My wife passed away 33 days ago. I was very happy. Now I am not. A friend who had a crazy meth habit. Year in prison. Drug court, school. Got a job, swore of drugs. Moved to be closer to his only son. Cleaned up successfully and started working with a local group that helped wayward youth get off of drugs and be clean. My niece went from being a meth-addicted felon who couldn't take care of her kids and bouncing in and out of jail to a respectable, reliable member of society. There was no fanfare. She just quietly went about changing her life. Most of us had just sort of written her off as a lost cause. My sister, her mother, had actually assumed legal custody of her kids. And she just changed. She did what she needed to do to get her life back on track. It took a while, but it's one of the most amazing and remarkable turnarounds I have ever seen. Kitchens. Christopher is pro-war in Iraq with some very strong justifications, yet he claims that waterboarding is not torture. And he is going to waterboard himself to demonstrate it. He so gives himself a waterboarding that lasts for, maybe, 4 minutes, rises standing in front of the microphones while still drenched, declares that he was terribly mistaken, and that, in the end, waterboarding is actually a kind of torture. That day, at least in my opinion, you earned a great deal of respect for intellectual honesty. My brother's friend grew up with a pretty rough home life. As a result, he spent a lot of time at my house and he more or less became an additional sibling and child in our house. My parents even offered to let him live with us after he graduated high school. Fortunately for him, he was able to get a full ride to a prestigious university and made friends with a bunch of rich guys there who let him live in their nice shared rental and would often gift him experiences or gently use really nice things. He graduated with honors and made 6 figures out of college. He's since gotten married and made a life for himself in our hometown. I don't know how much contact he has with his family, but he's still close to mine. 3 years ago I was totally paralyzed due to a neurological condition, totally bedridden, dependent on carers. As of this month, I am almost a qualified teacher and ran my first 5K. A doctor told me years ago to accept my life for what it was. I never stopped fighting, and now I'd never know anything was ever wrong with me. Friend of a friend was big into meth at the time, already a couple years deep. He would regularly play scratchers, and would frequently explain how if he spent enough overtime that he was guaranteed to win sometime. No amount of actual math helped him understand, so after buying his drugs, he would happily spend the rest on scratchers. Well, you wouldn't fucking believe it, but that bastard won 30 grand on a 5 scratcher. He sobered up, bought a car so he could get a better job, and I haven't heard from him in a few years cause I moved. But I see his posts every once in a while as living happily as a nighttime janitor for a school. Sometimes, I wish I could explain to the billionaires of the world how one of their wealth could completely change a life. But so poor I'd get crucified for even thinking about having a conversation with one of it. Edit. Okay, the big stupid. I meant not. Dear friend used to be a self-centered banker crypto bro with vile views on women. He was wealthy at a young age and even had an actual, honest-to-God marriage of convenience, a trophy wife. He was driving alone on a rural road in the holidays and had a car accident where it flipped. He got some head trauma from that, but also the heat in the car went on and out of control. So it turned into heat stroke that became an actual stroke. Took him 3 months to get out of a coma. He wasn't good at math anymore and had a soft and friendly personality. Like, unusually so for him. He also immediately demanded to be given drawing supplies. He didn't have a lot of memories of before and still doesn't. He's not rich anymore, is a professional artist now, and him and his trophy wife fell in love for real. He's extremely happy. He threw out all of his business suits, wears exclusively Hawaiian shirts, has a bunch of dogs, is bisexual and makes erotic ceramics. Old friend of mine was rootless and disconnected. She started feeding the homeless and found her calling. I'm proud to have answered her first request for items for the homeless. I sent bundles of gym socks. Now, she's internet famous. Her non-profit is completely driven by donations via social media. She's won several awards. She's provided the connective tissue for many people to move forward. Biggest 180 I've ever seen. I gave up drinking, began daily meditation, 45-minute workouts, therapy, regular sleep schedules, good nutrition, and to-do lists. Every day changed from being a gloomy alcoholic recluse to a productive, albeit slightly melancholy, member of society. People have asked for help and made comments on how different I seem. It requires a great deal of effort and, more crucially, constancy. Furthermore, change is a gradual process. People seek out fast fixes. Achieving goals and making progress is incredibly satisfying. I started running 6 months ago, and I finished a 5K with almost 3,000 runners in the top 8. Having done all of this, it is evident that I am not a complete moron. If there is no change, nothing happens. Robert Downey Jr. getting convicted for possession of an illegal firearm and cocaine and heroin, serving 15 months of his originally 3 years sentence in prison. That was in 1996. In 2015, the governor of California pardoned him for his actions. Today, he is one of the richest actors on the planet. Fun fact, his son also got into drugs on a similar age, was charged for possession, and went to rehab while being very much supported by his father. My own when my wife and I got divorced. Changed my style, changed back to an old career path, and changed my life for the better. Nothing against my ex-wife, we just wanted different things. She's doing well and so am I.